In this clip, we're going to create some roots for our tree. So here I got the mesh and I haven't actually done anything to it. It's pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my objects here and going to standard primitives and going to create a plane. Just so I have a little bit of a reference for my ground here. And I could just import that cliff that we made, but at this point it's not really necessary because I want this island to be quite flat at the top anyway, so I can see where the roots need to be from the plane here. So I'm just going to create that. And let's go ahead and create a new line. I'm just going to turn off these. Yeah, if you're interested in creating lines just with thickness, you can always just click enable in render and enable in viewport, and then the lines become thicker and you can just do that. But you can't control the thickness at the end and the start, so it's not really useful for tree making. So I'm just going to turn these off. And I'm just going to go ahead and start making some roots here. And I like to, whenever there's a sort of epic tree or a bigger master tree, I always want to make sure that it has some nice roots, because the player will spend, if a tree tall enough, the player would spend most of his time at the base of the tree, and it never looks good when the tree just ends like that. So let's go ahead and add the loft to it. Select loft, get shape, and click on our circle again. And we're using the same shape for every single one of those. We don't need to create a new one for each. And I'm just going to make it slightly thinner here. Let's go and add path. I'm just going to move that right about here. Don't want too many roots because you don't want to overdo it. Whenever you kind of create stylized trees, you kind of want to keep as little pieces like the branches and stuff as possible, because it just creates too much work to get these sculpted. And whenever you create realistic trees, you really don't really want to make it in ZBrush from unique sculpt, because it's just too hard to make a realistic tree. It's too many elements. Usually you would use stylable textures for that instead. But whenever you work on stylized work, trees always look nicer when you give them a nice sculpt. So let's go ahead in our scale again, and I'm just gonna lower this down, and this time I kind of go almost all the way down, somewhere around here. And let's go into our lines again, and just gonna make sure that it connects nice and well here. That's pretty good. And so this time, instead of creating a new line, I'm just gonna select the whole thing, hold shift, drag it, and create a new one. So I just basically duplicated it. And this time I'm just gonna go here. Let's go back into our line here. I'm just gonna lift it up a little bit. So I want to make sure that each one of those looks a little bit different from another. In fact, let's scale this up a little, this up a little bit, and maybe a bit more. And then go down here. Trying to give it a little bit more character. Get these roots over here. Perhaps a bit too much, so let's go down a bit. And then this one, I kind of want to make sure it goes a little bit the other way. And I will spend most of my time making the roots. That's where the player will see it the most. But in this tutorial, because we're kind of looking at overall picture, we'll give the entire tree a good treatment. Somewhere like this. Maybe a little bit down as well. So the roots always go in the ground in the end. So you don't want them to end randomly like this. I think 4 roots would be great here. So I'm just going to select this one. I'm actually going to select this first, go to scale, and just going to change the scale a little bit just so it looks slightly different to the other one. So that looks pretty good. And again, I'm not worried about things like this. It doesn't matter if it doesn't match completely, because we can always fix that in ZBrush really quick. So here we go, another one here. Let's just select the path. And again, you see I clicked on the path, but the line doesn't show up. So what you do is you click on the line and it will work. It's slightly buggy because basically what's happening is when you're selecting the loft, there's still a curve in there, and they're kind of 2 separate objects, but at the same time, they're the same object. There's just a little flaw here in 3ds Max. I wonder if it's a bug or if I don't understand something. But just make sure that you select the line as well as the mesh, and then you will have everything working. I'm just going to create this here. And again, I'm just going to go ahead, duplicate it on this side, rotate it. Something like this. I don't want it to be symmetrical, so I want to make sure this is different. And whenever you make a master tree, the idea is that you want to make it different from every angle. And that way you will never have the same tree again. So for instance, if you want to place a couple of those in the game, then you would rotate it, and from each angle it would look like a different tree. Like from here it looks like this, from here it looks like this. So you don't want the roots to repeat. You want them to make sure that they're always different on each side, because that sells quite a bit. I'm going to make it smaller, like this maybe. Something like that. And actually I'm going to make this one smaller as well. I don't like them too much, because we still want to fit a rock in there and a bit of a river. So I'll keep those two long because they kind of continue that flow of the tree. But these ones will be a little smaller here. And I'm still trying to, whenever I work with stylists, I try to keep curves. So you have nice curve here, nice curve here. And with curves, it just sells the silhouette better. And that's what we're looking for. So I think 4 roots is good. I probably need to make these a little chunkier at the base. So I'm going to select this one. Make it a bit more chunkier here at the base. And select the path again. Move the line. Move over here. That looks pretty good. And take this one again. Path, line. And just going to move it right about here. And let's make also a little bit more depth, scale to it. I'm just going to lift up the base a little, just because I don't want to leave too much of the bare tree here. And so I'm going to select the vertices, move this up a little bit, and that's it. So last thing I'm going to do is just, I'm going to select the whole thing, go into my materials here, and select just a normal gray material, apply it to everything, and then select the black outline just to clean everything up. Like I said before, it's always nice to keep everything nice and clean. So now if I put realistic on and add a light, give it shadows, go lighting, default with shadows, and let's add a skylight. So you can already see our tree here. So it's going to be quite interesting tree. It's very much, I'm kind of coming up with these trees as I go along, but it's very much like American South, sort of Louisiana inspired shapes, sort of like swampy tree. It's going to look pretty cool, I think. So last thing I want to do is, before I go ahead, is I'm going to go in here. And as you can see, I have quite a bit of these raggedy edges here. So I'm going to go in and add Turbo Smooth to everything. So I'm going to make sure I add Turbo Smooth, and then select Smooth Groups, and add maybe a couple definitions here. And I'm just going to copy that and select each one of those, paste instanced, and here, and the same here, and the same here, and the same here. So now we have nice and smooth tree ready to be sculpted. So this is it for this clip. In the next clip, we're going to go ahead into Photoshop and create a mask for our tree pattern.